At the heart of a quiet town, a curved path winds around a sleepy pond beside a tall family tree. In a crook near the top, a twig-built house glows with morning light. There lives Stickman, with Stick Lady Love and their 3 little stick children. Leaves applaud the breeze, while squirrels gossip in knots. This gentle morning sets the stage. A household of woven twigs, moss mats, a tiny bark door, and a family full of ritual. Stickman begins his daily jog down the question curve path, headband steady and scarf trailing like a pennant. He knows each pebble and slope, rhythm mends his frayed edges. Below, Stick Lady Love sews a patch, while Twiglet, Nettle, and Pip press to the railing, faces bright with imagined heroics. He waves and hums a tuneful greeting to the neighborhood. This gentle ritual keeps their small world steady and promises his return. On the lawn, a streak of excitement barrels toward him. Baxter, the dog, ears like sails and a bell jingling. Baxter adores Sticks and sees Stickman as the grand prize. Before Stickman can step aside, the terrier leaps, teeth close, and the world becomes a wild scatter of paws and clover. Stickman protests that he is not a stick, but Baxter only knows joy. He is lifted, tugged, and pulled like a kite on a string. A sharp shout comes from beyond the rhododendron. A hand grabs Baxter's collar and orders a drop. The terrier resists for the joy of the chase, and with one last gleeful tug, sends Stickman twirling through sunlight. He somersaults, feels the metallic tang of panic, and hits the ground with a muffled thump. Then, as if a new law of nature has taken hold, the river claims him, pulling him into cold, insistent currents. Water takes him like a jealous hand, spinning Stickman between reeds and ripples. He bobs and sees his tree as a slim sliver, impossibly far. He passes willows with whispering green beards and slips under a little bridge where a child kicks a tin boat. He clings to floating reeds, tasting river chill, and missing the creak of his branch. Ducks look on with astonished beaks, while the current chatters at his knuckles. A stately swan arrives, Sasha, the swan, neck curved like a graceful question mark. She inspects driftwood with a careful architect's eye and decides Stickman is ideal nest material. Despite his protests, he is lifted and tucked between warm, downy feathers, pressed like an odd pillow under her wing. He feels bark scrape and a twig nail split, and in the hush beneath plumage, he plans an escape, while the swan fusses and settles. On Sasha's island, he lies prodded and rearranged until the swan, satisfied, settles atop him. Quiet moments give Stickman chance to wriggle. When Sasha sleeps, he shifts through down and slips toward the waterline. He floats anew beneath a huge sky. Then the winter wind seizes him like a mischievous hand, lifting and tumbling him across fields, over rooftops and along hedgerows, carrying him toward unexpected places with sudden cold enthusiasm. The winter wind hurls him into a playground where sunlight bounces off slides and empty swings. Small hands briefly claim him as a wand and then abandon him in a sandbox. Stickman lies among tiny castles and plastic shovels, listening as day cools toward dusk. Alone except for the wind's whisper, he wedges himself beneath a board and waits, quiet and patient, until lamps blink awake and evening folds the town into longer shadows. As night deepens, strangers return from market, and the town gathers its meals. Hands move by habit, seeking straight pieces for a hearth. A board pried free reveals Stickman, damp and tired. They bundle him with other kindling into a basket, unaware of the life within this twig. He smells river and winter, but looks sturdy. Stacked beside a hearth, he listens to the quiet home breathe, heat approaching like a slow, bright finger. Heat willows into urgency as flames begin their slow climb toward the stack. Stickman pushes, levering against a stray can and shifting to make escape harder for a hand to snatch. Panic tightens until a muffled thump and a clumsy cough echo down the flue. Then a whoosh and soot avalanche. Old Chimney Santa tumbles into the hearth, coat streaked black with soot. His surprised "oh dear" sounds like a bell, and hope sparks inside Stickman. Stickman worked fast, gathering slivers and a stray poker, composing a tiny bridge of twigs against the grate. He timed his bracing with Old Chimney Santa's pushes, explaining anchors and pivots through soot-choked breaths. With a heave, they shifted brick and iron. The grate rattled, and the chimney spat a cough of coal. Finally, Santa toppled free in a cloud of soot, laughing and rubbing his throat, while Stickman sagged, splintered but triumphant. Old Chimney Santa sat back on his heels, soot softening his beard, and thanked Stickman with a belly laugh and a promise of help. Stickman, voice thin with worry, asked only to go home to Stick Lady Love and their children. Santa's eyes warmed. He rummaged in a generous sack and produced a glowing ribbon that hummed like a small wind. "Climb aboard," he said, voice gentle and sure. Old Chimney Santa looped the glowing ribbon around Stickman like a belt, its light humming and lending lift. Stickman settled in a nook of the sleigh amid fur and parcels, the reindeer pawing below. Santa checked stars and reins, murmuring directions. With a soft thump and an upward tug, the sleigh rose, carrying Stickman away from soot toward the moonlit town and the familiar silhouette of his tree, tiny and bright below. High above chimneys and sleeping streets, Santa spun small stories of rooftops, cats in flues, and stockings hung with careful hope. Stickman, nose pressed to sleigh rail, traced the pattern of his own tree, describing a particular notch in a branch and the children's tiny bed. Santa listened, folding each detail into his star map. The night smelled of smoke and frost. Ribbons of aurora and stitched a pathway that Santa could follow with a cartographer's memory. The sleigh's runners whispered across the uppermost bough and settled with a soft exhale. Moonlight dusted sticky bark with sugar. For a heartbeat, Stickman saw his home as a painted diorama. Santa eased him down with a careful hand, the ribbon dissolving into a warm glow. Stickman's twig feet found the trunk, and he began to run and climb, bark creaking underfoot, breath rapid. Each rung brought the smell of home, moss, tea, and expectation closer. At the little bark door, a pinprick of light blinked. Stick Lady Love had been waiting, ears tuned to every twig snap. The door opened, and 3 small bodies hurled themselves at Stickman. Twiglet's leaf cap smudged, Nettle's careful hands clutched, and Pip crowned him with a tiny thimble. Stick Lady Love wrapped her moss-skirted arms around him, planting seed-bead eyes full of relief upon his chest. The nest folded around them like a gentle patchwork hug. That night, under a roof of leaves that filtered starlight, Stickman told his tale not as a list of losses, but as a necklace of faces and lessons. He described Baxter's joyous mouth, Sasha's architect's eye, and the crow's greedy curiosity, weaving each into a lesson about help and hazard. The winter wind sighed outside, nudging the nest. Inside, the family breathed together, stitches and stories mending frayed pieces into a warmer whole. Morning found the nest warm and quiet. Stick Lady Love set to work with moss pincushion and patient hands, mending Stickman's frayed scarf and sewing a bright red leaf patch where the river had thinned his bark. The children watched, offering bits of dandelion fluff and proud applause. Stickman promised, aloud and steady, to keep jogging but nearer the borders of the pond, where paths were kinder. The family nodded. A new rhythm settled, cautious and whole. Days later, Stickman stepped from the nest for a careful jog, feet tapping measured by children's calls. He kept close to the well-worn path, eyes open for mischief and joy. Baxter bounded up, collar jangling, surprised to find his stick alive and smiling rather than fleeing. The terrier nosed and licked, tongue apologetic in its own way. Owner waved from the bench, apologies and laughter exchanged. Stickman realized that caution and kindness could travel together. As he jogged, Stickman felt home both underfoot and inside him, a compass of knots and memory. The pond's curve, the family's window like a watchful eye, and even Baxter's romp stitched into a broader pattern of help and hazard. He kept his headband tight, scarf mended, steps lighter. The winter wind passed, gentler now, and branches applauded softly. With each measured stride he learned returning, carrying home and choosing paths that bring you back. Morning settled soft and responsible as Stickman stepped from the nest for a careful run. Stick Lady Love watched from the doorway with twig children cheering. Twiglet, Nettle, and Pip called after him. Baxter, the dog, bounded up, not with teeth this time, but a wagging apology bell. The winter wind curled politely through branches. Stickman smiled, keeping to closer paths, his heart tuned to the small voices that had become his true rhythm. That afternoon, the tree became a workshop. Stick Lady Love set a sewing circle under dappled light, patching his frayed scarf, while Twiglet and Nettle ferried acorn caps. Pip beat a steady thimble rhythm. Neighbors arrived with small comforts, a feather from Sasha, the swan, a warm berry bun, each gift a stitch in community warmth. Baxter, the dog, sat politely, bell quiet now, head low in the lesson of gentleness he had learned. Over the next days, Stickman taught small, practical lessons: how to read a wind, how to test a reed for buoyancy, and the simple joy of making a lever from spare twigs. Twiglet, Nettle, and Pip gathered close, eyes bright as seeds, learning to tie a dandelion knot and to whistle with a halas femme. Stick Lady Love supervised, proud and steady. Baxter, the dog, watched, tail slow and patient, learning quiet play. When the town held its small autumn fete, Stickman was invited as a living tale. Lanterns swung, carts offered nutty scents, and neighbors gathered beneath flags of dried leaves. Old Chimney Santa arrived, rubbing his hands and telling children of chimneys and narrow escapes. He placed a tiny brass bell on a low branch as thanks, winking at Stickman. The crowd cheered softly. Twiglet banged a drum. Hearts hummed with the town's stitched-together gratitude. One blue afternoon, Stickman walked the path to the pond to thank Sasha, the swan, for her unwitting help. Moonlight didn't guide them now. Instead, a warm late sun gilded reed tops. Sasha glided close, head tilted with polite pride. She offered a single downy plume, which Twiglet had seen and called lucky. Stickman bowed his twigged head in gratitude. Baxter, the dog, nosed at the bank, now a respectful friend, tail slow and content. As colder nights crept closer, the tree community gathered to winter-proof homes. Stick Lady Love coordinated a quilt of moss and bark, teaching Twiglet, Nettle, and Pip how to layer insulation and sew wind-proof flaps. Stickman helped hammer small pegs, humming a steady cadence. The winter wind tested their work, but found seams snug and humming. Baxter, the dog, curled at the doorstep like a guardian. The town's careful hands turned precaution into a festival of care. Winter taught new habits. Stickman's morning run became a loop that checked neighbors' doors, nudged loose bark back into place, and paused at Sasha's pond to leave a little twig offering. Twiglet shadowed him sometimes, learning where pebbles lurked and which roots sang when stepped on. Nettle kept a list of safer routes. Pip drummed a warning rhythm when branches were slick. Baxter, the dog, escorted them with respectful yips, a little bell chiming their steady progress. The first real snow came like sifted sugar, softening rooftops and hush. The tree bowed under lace, and lights in windows glowed like safe coins. Old Chimney Santa passed overhead on his rounds, spotting the family nest snug and dropping a small parcel tied with ribbon of holly. He waved, boots bobbing in the sleigh, and the children squealed into mittened hands. The winter wind carried the parcel's scent of spice and soot, promising festive warmth. That evening, inside their moss-woven room, Stick Ladylove lit a tiny beeswax wick, and the family unwrapped old Chimney Santa's parcel. Inside lay a small brass bell, polished and warm, and a folded strip of ribbon, like the one that had carried Stickman home. Santa's handwriting promised return visits for stories. Twiglet hung the bell at the nest rail. Pip drummed a grateful beat. Nettle stitched a ribbon loop. Laughter patched any remaining threadbare edges. Morning after the snow, Stickman laced his scarf, Bell tucked fast as a talisman. He jogged at a steady measure, Twiglet and Pip scampering beside him, Nettle checking the map. Stick Ladylove kissed each brow at the doorway. Baxter, the dog, kept a friendly pace beside them, collar jingling like a new rhythm. The town watched from porches, branches applauded with soft creaks. Stickman carried home in every step, and each stride felt like belonging.